Welcome back to the NAL. We're over halfway through today with only 2 more games left, and this one being DZ against OXG. Both of these names, no strangers here onto the NAL. We've seen them time and time again. A couple of roster changes coming through for both of these, and maybe not the performance that DZ was looking for at Reload, but you know what? Another import for DZ.
I mean, it seems
Keep
to
them
only
coming.
I mean, you know, they got a Canadian on there. They got a lot of the UK. So I mean, they basically not DZ anymore. It's beans on toast is what it's looking
Are
like.
you a beans on toast hater too? Because I know you hate tier 2, so
Who's
that's
a beans on toast liker?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest.
Guys, the Brits. I mean, they're probably watching.
Irrelevant.
Like, I'm telling you, half the EUL is like watching this and offended right now.
I'm Mexican. I like beans on a tortilla.
You know what? Actually, respect.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Kangaroo Kenny, another UK member there, and how just the Reload showed them, you know, the mistakes that they were making, and it's a learning opportunity, which is obviously what you want from a team. Then brings the question of, can they make the change as quickly as needed?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we've all known with Darkzero, they were such a one-dimensional team. They were always stuck to their strats, always stuck to that book. But as this new iteration with Nave coming onto the roster, removing of Troy, and then Bolo, and all these different iterations, we're starting to see Darkzero be a brand new team in just terms of their fundamentals and how they play. Whereas before they were very static, now they're very aggressive. And then you're adding Kangaroo Kenny into the picture, coming from EU, knowing how EU plays, and then already having Nafe on that roster, just those two gelling together, working with Pamba and NJR. And then they start finding success. They're looking like a brand new team. And this is what we also wanted to start seeing Darkzero, of not being that one-dimensional play where they can work around the map, they can work around operators, they can work around players. And that is what we're starting to see with each and every single iteration that Darkzero keeps bringing to the table, whether it's on a coaching staff or on the player side of things.
And with the addition of the new ban system, it heavily improves DZ's potential, just because with the huge pickup of getting Spirits and Citizen fits into Bolo's spot perfectly. He's very flexible. He can play whatever you want. But Spirits, more specifically, is that X-Factor player. Everybody knows he's one of the best, if not the best shield player in the world.
He was the best shield player.
And now with the bans, you essentially have to either ban shields because Spirits is going to be playing them. But if you ban shields, that's where the creativity from DZ is able to come out. He was also the innovator of the Ying shotgun in Reload. And we're able to see him on so many different operators, on the Glaz, on the Ying, on the Grim. We can see him on a plethora of operators that not many players are so comfortable on, or as comfortable as he is on. So with the new bans and with how flexible DZ is, they look like the most well-rounded and the team with the most potentials currently in the NAL.
That's a huge statement to be making because, you know, I think Wildcard was someone who highlighted earlier today, kind of like didn't necessarily live up to the expectations. So for DZ, again, would we say this is more their game to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree that it's DZ's game to lose. And at the end of the day, when you look at every single player on the team, besides Spirits, it's all very angle-holding passivity, very good players. Everybody knows NJR on the windows or on the repels. They have players that are very passive. But when stuff gets moving, that's where they're able to act. And Spirits is that counteraction that is able to light a fire under the other team that forces them to move.
And I think it just speaks into the versatility of this now Darkzero roster than it's ever been before, where every player can jump into any single role if need be, granted if they need to be in the set role.
And OXG also had a couple of roster changes, but I think it's really important to highlight as well the journey that OXG has been on over the last year, specifically when we're looking at their top 8 finish at SI. And if anything, it's Unwanted that got them eliminated, which I don't think a lot of people had on their bingo card.
No, I mean, I don't think a lot of people had Oxygen on their bingo card to make it as far as they did. I mean, way back when, they didn't find any success for 2 years, and the one time they actually found success was qualifying for SI and making their run, making that top 8 finish, which was impressive to everyone, but it was obviously going to show them that they needed to make roster changes after that, because it still wasn't enough to them, clearly already having to make roster changes. And you're looking at those roster changes of Forrest, Adam, and Grixer coming out, losing on Diaz, losing on Hat, and the biggest one for me on that roster is obviously losing out on Newers. But this is what is concerning for me, and always has been Oxygen's biggest struggle, is just them constantly swapping out players one right after the other and not finding success. And even as good
personal experience.
Yes, even as good as these 3 players are, as Forrest, Adam, and Grixar, they all come from completely different systems and structure, where one's super aggressive, one's super passive. One was just a team full of support players, that being Adam, and now you're just meshing that with Yaga and Gomez onto the roster. To me, it's a situation of old Beast Coast where they did not have a foundation. They didn't understand the style of play that they want, and I can kind of see that possibly trending in that direction.
Then what are we looking for when it comes to the identity for OXG? If you have all these different systems and all these players from them coming into this roster, what could be the glue that puts them together?
Well, that's the biggest thing. It really comes down to the coaching staff having to put the effort to connect the dots, because that's the one constant throughout all the iterations of OXG is the coaching staff. Every other player has been changed besides the coaching staff. So at this point, we're getting new talent in almost every other season. The issue with OXG is obviously the leadership in the server, but a lot of help can be put in from the support staff. And OXG has finally been able to get support staff since that top 8 finish. So things are slowly progressing, but now you have a whole new bag of tricks because you have so many new players. The ideology, Gomez IGLing, now you have Forrest that can IGL too, but completely different styles of play. You have Adam, who's a passive player, Gritzer, who's a flex player, but also can do both. You just have to find cohesion amongst everybody, and I believe it's going to take time to be able to figure that out. It's not something that'll happen overnight.
I look at it and I see it still as an identity crisis.
But then you're looking as well at the side of OXG, and I mean, you've had a chance to look at DZ when it comes to reload. You've had the opportunity to have a bit of a peek behind the curtain, do a little bit of scouting. Don't know if they're their scrim partners, but there still is some prep that OXG could have done coming into this match that can potentially give them a slight edge over DZ.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think whenever you have a VOD, that's great, but you always can't rely on the VOD because the biggest thing is being able to adapt in the game, and that's where we're going to need to be seeing that, especially come from Auction. Especially we're going to highlight that there's an identity crisis that already could be potentially there. So it's going to be even more imperative that they're going to be on top of that and being able to identify things faster than normal. But again, it really does come down to the bans here and what map we're going to see, which we're going to see Lair, which this was a map for Oxygen, just from the core roster of Yaga and Gomez.
I mean, they
did have a little bit better showing. I believe that was their one victory that they got during their regular season when they had a very poor start. So they obviously know the map. Forrest is no slouch to it either, being on SSG. They liked it. He knows how to get into the nitty-gritty of things on this map. But again, what I'm looking at is that they find their identity. They find fluidity throughout their attacks. But as for DZ, I mean, we saw them on this map just in reload. It's a good map for them.
It's a great map for DC, especially being able to, that's where we first saw the Ying shotgun come in. So obviously for OXG, it's going to have to come down to the counter-stratting and how much preparation, which a lot of it comes down to the coaching staff. So hopefully we can see that in play.
So quick prediction then being DZ.
Yeah, I think we have to give it to DC until we're proven otherwise.
Do we want to give some rounds?
7-3.
7-3. I'll say 7-3, 7-4.
You guys are sticking with the theme of today, 7-2, 7-4. We'll see whether or not that's going to be the case. We're going to be heading over to our casters, Jesse and Intero. And from what I've been told, they actually do think that OXG can win this one.
I don't know who told you that. I mean, I always think that teams can win this one. I don't ever go into a match thinking it's predetermined or a foregone conclusion, but I think just based on the prestige of these two teams, it's probably a bit of a harder sell to say that OXG is going to come out on top. Do you agree or disagree, young man?
I do agree. I think Auction have a good shot here. You know, I think Darkzero have had some stumbles over the last couple of months. They don't look like they're really well put together team that we've seen from them in previous years. And the Auction really excites me. You know, they've got some really fun new pickups. That's talked about it. You know, Adam, Richter coming on to the team for us as well. Looks like a brand new Oxygen, and the best isn't wrong. You know, we need to see what this team looks like. They're a mystery bag. They could come out of the gate and absolutely flop. But I like the pieces they put together in this off season. I like the new teams they brought into the North American League this year, and I'm really excited to see them.
I mean, I am too. I'm excited to see how the entirety of the NA League shakes out. We've had some serious upheaval here. Even teams that have long been towards the top, teams like Space Station, for example, Darkzero, that old Sonics roster, they've made some changes. Obviously, Sonics are now Shopify Rebellion, but they bring on Spoit. Darkzero, same org, but now they've got Citizen and Spirit. Space Station, one of the longest tenured orgs in all of North America. The support that they give that team is almost unrivaled. And now they've added Newers, who's actually stepping off of this OXG team to take part on Space Station. OXG, their identity for so long, I felt like, was kind of tied into Fox and Laxing, and then kind of became the Fox a show, so to speak, and it was quite successful. Over time, the team needed to find its own identity once he moved off of the squad, and it kind of became about Newers. It went through a period of time where it was all about Dream. You always had Diaz and Gomez tied together. They have now been separated. We have put one of them, Diaz, is in timeout down in South America in Brazil. Gomez is still playing with OXG, but you've got a player like Adam, who's on your screen right now, who has been terrific in T2. He has been consistently on the verge of greatness in Tier 1, but has always seemingly fallen a little bit short. Can this OXG team put him in a position where he's going to thrive? He's got a very strong supporting cast in Gomez, Yaga, and Forrest. The support there for OXG on paper is quite good. And what of Grixer? There was a lot of criticism leveled towards Grixer, Jesse, about the way that he played on Sonics. Maybe he was a little bit too scared to take engagements, and it didn't really work all that well. When they moved over to Shopify Rebellion, they had him for one event, they then dropped him, and now who knows how he does on a new team with a new identity.
Well, we will get to find out here today in their match against Darkzero. A double shield ban would be most expected on a map like Lair. It's a very heavy shield map, and of course, playing up against Spirits, you want to see that taken off the board. Usually the question for attacking teams on what they want to remove, sometimes you'll see that Bandit Kaid combo, sometimes you'll see like an Azami Two-Brow combo. Warden is usually paired with Kaid, but it goes to the Clash again. We don't have any data with Clash in the pool because our map ban or our operator bans all come from Reload, where Clash was not available. But I think Warden Clash is a very reasonable pair of operators for Darkzero to remove from the board. So expect to see DZ running around with that Ying that they love so much. With Warden no longer being open for auction to choose, I would anticipate that Spirits is going to run a lot of flashes, a lot of that disruption operator, and he's very, very good with it. So it's going to be annoying for OXG.
Forrest is just, honestly, he's an enigma for me. The way he plays on these teams, the history he's had playing on, you know, E United to Space Station, all the different rosters that he's been on, and he's made a terrific career here in the NA League. He plays thankless roles. He plays out of meta pocket pick operators, which obviously puts him in the proverbial crosshairs. When things go awry, people will turn around and say, well, what were you doing on that off? Like when he plays Fuse Shield or something goofy along those lines. But when he's at his best and he's empowered by a good team around him, he can dominate games. We don't see it all that often, largely just because of the roles he's on, and I'm assuming he's going to be running the Ela shotgun here. We'll wait for the expanded viewpoint to give us a window into what he's running. Right now, he's just on cams. My thinking behind the Ela shotgun is that he's been running around with the pistol out. That's probably because, well, if you're on... Oh, no, he is running the Scorpion. Okay, maybe it was just for the speed bonus. But I mean, like, if there's a guy who's going to run an Ela shotgun on one of the biggest maps where you only take close range engagements, it's Forrest, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely correct. And ultimately just comes down to the position he's playing. If he's going to be down kind of in office, then it makes more sense to have a gun that's a little bit more versatile in the angles he wants to take. Right now, Darkzero will have to answer this. They put Spirits up on the Blackbeard, which is a fun choice. Obviously, with Blitz and Monty banned out, you can always play that third shield, at least until we get into round number 4. This is a very standard hold from OXG. They're not really expanding. They've got players over towards the staircases, but they don't want to touch that top floor. They're not playing too aggressive on that mid floor either. Now with Grixer playing a bit of a rat angle, that Logic Bomb's about to wear off. This could catch someone off guard, but Darkzero are also the team who generally check their corners with the drones.
The biggest map in Siege, it has not been polished for Siege X, so it plays and looks exactly the same as it did in the regular Rainbow Six Siege before the update came in, so you won't notice anything different. Of course, changes to operators and changes to the actual way the game plays will carry over, but the map will remain in its current state, and that means that there will be a familiarity there for teams. They know how to go about it. On Space Station, Forrest used to play this an awful lot. Darkzero knows this map. It was, for a period of time, one of their favorite maps, albeit with a different look and different composition. But it seems like they can change out the roster, but they still find the same success. 2 minutes in, Darkzero strikes first. They take out Yaga on stairs and will now continue to creep up to the bomb site. It's just out of reach for Spirits, but he's got a shield in his face. Who will slow him down?
Nate's going to come down and open up the wall. Pamba finds an opening pick again onto Gomez. Grixer knows he needs to do something drastic, but he's caught on a drone, and he really doesn't have that element of surprise anymore. Who's going to step up for OXG? Because this push has been perfect from Darkzero.
Logic bombs will go off, and Force is getting hit with the double whammy as now he's being watched by Citizen, but of course, that tracker goes both ways. No mute jammers on the board, so nothing to stop that gadgetry. Forrest is watching as he sees the Shield of Spirits walk on in. Pamazoo dies at the hands of Grixer, who has not relinquished control upstairs, and he'll find himself fighting a second, but NJR gets the perfect swing. It was Forrest last alive who tussled with the Blackbeard. He got the kill, but it was a Pyrrhic victory as he died shortly thereafter. DZ takes round number 1.
And a decently standard push, I think, executed really well. You know, they take control of those filter stairs. They have full armory control. Didn't ever expect that flank to come out from Grixer, which is a little surprising because they did have the logic bombs, but ultimately they limited him to just 1 kill, and that is good enough to close things out if you're going to be Darkzero. So feeling good about that round. I like their entry with the Blackbeard. Didn't find the opening Spirits, but Spirits can play 2 styles of shield. You know, he can play aggressive, getting those frags for himself. Also very good at calling that information to his teammates. Then, of course, late, when he needs to be that distraction focal point as well, he is happy to die to get his teammates the round win in that final execute. So, yeah, good stuff coming out from Darkzero as a whole. Nothing revolutionary on that push, but a strong start. Kind of what you wanted to see from a more established team, not dissimilar to what we were talking about with Shopify a few games ago.
10 seconds left before insertion.
There'll be some chemistry here from both Nafe and Citizen playing together, so that'll immediately help. I mean, Spirits is a bit of a journeyman when you look at all of the different teams that he has floated around on at a tier 1 level. His entry point to professional play actually came in the very short-lived Canadian League, if you remember that, the Canadian division back in 2020 when we saw North America get split between the two. There were still Canadians playing in the US division, and there were still Americans playing in the Canadian division, so it got a little murky. But that was how Spirits got in there, and he immediately started making a name for himself. He is a tremendously flexible player. Now, obviously, he's known for shields, but there are plenty of clips of him rocking just on regular support or even fragging operators with a good gun where he can make some serious noise. He was a great pickup for Darkzero, and well, he didn't really do much in terms of killing in that previous round, but he was a focal point. And Oxygen kept getting distracted by him because you can't leave a Blackbeard alone when he's running right at you.
Typically, Spirits like the Monty on this site, not available, continues to make space. Gomez actually opens, and they get a good shot to kill Spirits, but didn't quite find it. Nade kill will finish off Gomez, which means that Yaga has to get out of there, retreat back to his teammate of Grixer inside of the R6 room. So, bit of ground lost on the side of OXG. You trade a Gridlock for a smoke, probably not the best trade that you've had. This is an awkward one of those awkward bomb sites where you really desperately need to fight for that top floor, and Darkzero so far doing a good job of that.
2 of your later operators are now gone, both the Smoke and the Goyo, no longer available. Gas canisters are an active gadget, so Gomez dying means you won't have them available, but those Goyo canisters will remain, and you just saw the flames in front of Spirits linger ever so slightly. Yaga's just waiting, baiting for somebody to take an engagement here. There goes an Adrenal Surge to give a bit more staying power to Darkzero. Spirits following up and doing the damage himself, and Yaga is punished for it. Grixer and Adam are the last 2 left. A quiet first round from Adam. He's got a read from above. Grixer on the board in this round. That's the Solus, an operator seldom seen. DZ now had seemed to attempt the plant. Nafe will find a second opportunity as it's a play from behind as Grixer punishes Spirits, flips over and takes down Nafe with them. Pambazoo now, hat in hand, completely helpless. He'll have to scramble to get back upstairs and take the engagement head on as Grixer and Adam still remain standing. Grixer's been reduced in terms of HP, but he'll dodge these flames, holding this position with a shotgun in close range. Pambazoo wants the fight, and he might get it, but not in the way that he wants. Grixer seals the deal, and OXG answers back with a round of their own.
Very early, but my strong contender for the best Solus play we're going to see this season. Beautiful stuff from Grixer, a rare operator, but gets a lot of play on that main floor bomb site because smoke plants inside the site are so common. Often what you'll see is roaming players up above will play something like a Warden so that they can deny a smoke plant from above. Solus does the job just as well. Now, didn't need to use his gadget in that round to deny a plant, but some excellent work with the shotgun. managed to find Nave's plant position as well. His teammate up top, Adam, doing a good job of forcing the plant spot to go here, then it's there, then it's there. He had to rotate that plant so many times because of what Adam was doing. Didn't get a kill in that round, but was popping Goyo canisters, was dealing damage to a planter to force him to change that positioning. A lot of really good teamwork coming out from Adam and Grixer in that last round. So Grixer gets the kills, but it's that coordination and that cool little bit of utility that really does settle things down.
10 seconds remaining.
Really good trust as well on Oxygen. They played their roles perfectly. Adam and Grixer were separate but equals when it comes to their engagements. And, well, Grixer did his own thing. Adam held down the fort, and Darkzero were punished for not keeping somebody on that top floor. Now, again, Lair is the biggest map in the map pool. There are considerations that Lair has that other maps just simply don't. If you go back to the old days of when Theme Park was in the map pool and it was the biggest map that we had, it was very similar, especially when Theme Park had that train corridor in the middle, because the roam potential for defenders was unmatched on other maps. Operators that brought claymores or specifically stashing drones in certain locations, or operators like Gridlock, Nomad, etc., needed to be used to ensure that you weren't being pounced upon. Citizen almost gets 2 for his trouble, as now it's Spirits pinching from a separate angle. And those Goyo canisters that we saw in a previous round set up in similar positions will now be popped. That means 20 seconds for Darkzero to wait them out. They got that opening pick, and Forest is no more. Great start for DZ.
Yeah, I mean, that time waste with the Goyo canister is going to be critical just to slow the round down and calm things down. Didn't expect that aggressive play from Darkzero to run straight in with the Finka charge. Hunt for blood. That's exactly what happened. Still, the space taken is super valuable. I like Darkzero's position a lot here. Still some toxic babies you've got to wait through, but a minute 41 on the clock at the moment, and already these toxic babes have to start getting used. The mirror windows exist, but you've got good counters in the ace, and even the buck to go down below. So Darkzero have the answers they need to tackle this push. I'm curious if anybody in OXG will have a sense of urgency and try to make a move, maybe go for a flank. That hatch is open right next to Yaga if he chooses to drop, but obviously it feels very risky if you do drop that bottom floor, leave your team in an even worse man disadvantage on the site.
Grixer playing a very similar role to what we saw of him when he was on the Sonics, which is he's assisting with the team, but playing off on his own. Grixer is some very good decision making, and if he's left to his own devices, he can really punish you. The problem is when it's not in sync with the rest of the team. There are a couple players that have inhabited that same role that Grixer likes to play. One of them is on our analyst desk, and that's Laxing. They can be at their best when they are their own decision makers and not relying on the rest of the team. He's got 5 kills to his name, and his 3K that happened in the previous round won his team round number 2. So we talk about impact frags. If Grixer stays at 5 kills for the remainder of the match, which would be bad, at least he'd still find some very important kills that resulted in a round being won. Gomez dies, Yaga dies, Adam dies. Grixer's last one left. A flawless round for Darkzero is on the board. It won't happen. Grixer gets Spirits right as Spirits drops the shield. Blackbeard a little bit slower than I think Spirits was hoping for, and that's only a single kill from OXG as DZ bounces back. And we have, through 3 rounds, our most competitive match of the day.
We did think it might go competitive. We did expect this to come through. I would be shocked if this wasn't a Blackbeard ban. Answered out from OXG. There it goes. Spirits has been an absolute monster on this operator. Again, he's only gotten, I believe, 1 kill up to this point playing the Blackbeard every single round. But you've seen the space he's been able to take every single time. It's been dominant and always favoring for Darkzero. You know, that last round, not technically a flawless round as Spirits died right at the end, but I would still call it a perfect execute from DZ where everything went right. Just like in the first round, when Spirits goes down with like 2 seconds remaining or whatever it is, right before they win, he's just there to be a distraction. He is holding shift and W to make sure everybody looks at him because he's got confidence that his teammates are going to lock things down and win out by getting the last couple of kills. He has been massively impactful on that Blackbeard. I'm glad to see it gone. But now Spirits gets to level up. Now he brings out that Ying. There's a reason why they banned out the Warden at the start of this game. Spirits one of the best Ying players in the world. This is not going to get easier for OXG.
Again, it goes back to that flexibility that Spirits has just as a player.
I cursed it.
He teased you on the Ying. This is Jesse.
Bomb and defuse it.
This is why you never get baited in until the operators are locked, because you could have spent this whole time salivating at Ying being shown, and he's just boring old Jackal.
We'll see the Ying, okay? Mark my words, this game won't end unless Spirits gets on Ying at least once.
I'll go back to something I said in round number 1, which is that Forrest gets heat for playing unconventional operators. Look at who he is playing at this current point in time. Now, Tachanka obviously is not an unconventional operator, but there are very few maps and very few bomb sites where he is the optimal pick. He is a pocket pick. You know, maybe on consulate upstairs, you could get some big value from him, and banking on some of the basements where the bomb site is right by the door, you could find value for him as well. But Tachanka is not always the best option for stalling out a push or for a post plant. A lot of times you find Smoke is obviously the go-to. Echo can be great. Maestro, Goyo, and Kaid can also be excellent if they're anchoring down a particular spot. How is Forrest going to use this operator? Because there are options. This is the bottom floor bomb site. Again, lots of bankable angles. Could find some value here, but Forrest has also been a very early death through the previous 2 rounds. If Tachanka is the operator you pick, you got to stay alive till the end.
I don't think that'll be a problem based on his positioning. Nafe, however, will be the first one to go down, and that might be even worse with your ace being the first player to go down on the side of Darkzero. That's going to be all the hard breach that they brought into this round. Now, this isn't a bomb site that requires heavily on hard breach, but still, you are now going to be able to keep those hatches closed if they weren't already opened. A lot of these roamers still existing on the main floor too. The logic bombs are great, but if Adam's able to shut off that phone as he is, Grixer's still nearby, you've got problems.
Imizu finding Adam. Yaga dies again. OXG has a bad habit of all collapsing at roughly the same time. I mean, maybe that's credit to DZ for being so practiced. Grixer again, when left to his own devices, is so successful. Not this time. The mayor himself punishing him on the way to a potentially successful re-election. Gomez and Forrest last 2 alive. Again, we talked about these anchor operators. Smoke and Tachanka are 2 of the best that you can have with only 45 seconds remaining in the round. Where do you place that gadgetry? Where do the gas canisters go? Do you get aggressive and go for peaks? Because at this point, DZ outnumbers you 2-1. Forrest sitting just off site. Gomez was in the heart of it. And he will now rotate to be a bit more aggressive as he gets hunted down by Citizen's Deathmark. They'll know where each other is, leaving Forrest as the question mark, who's now watching the hatch as a drop will come out. He misses an opportunity, gets the down onto Spirits. Another body could fall too. Gomez picked apart. The drop goes in. Forrest lighting him up, but Pambazoo gets both of them, and DZ wins 2 in a row.
Nice try on the anchor play. Obviously, Smoke Tachanka, that duo that you like for the time denial. But the problem when you're in a 2v4 with Tachanka is you can't really use your utility because it's going to take you so long to put your gun away, bring out the Shamika launcher, fire it off to block any areas you don't want the attackers to run through, and then switch back over to your gun. It's just not feasible unless you have a lot of teammates around to protect you so that you don't need to have your gun up. In a 2v4, Tachanka's really not able to do a whole lot of stall, and I think Forrest made the right decision keeping his gun up there. Obviously, it wasn't enough. If you hit some shots, I think that is a winnable round, but in the smoke, that's obviously much easier said than done. So a tough round if you're OXG, one that you maybe would have liked to have some more success in the early round instead. But this Darkzero team have been ever present in the early round, making sure that they can work those picks, especially on the roam clear. Dokkaebi has been a huge problem. This is another kind of issue when you're up against Spirits. You know, you've got 3 bans, which is a lot. You used to only get 2 bans and only 1 could be an attacker. Now in Siege, you can ban 3 different attacking operators, but if you've got to spend all of them on shields, you're still going to have to go up against Dokkaebi. You're still going to have to go up against Ying. You're still going to have to go up against whatever these other annoying operators, Damo is another good example, that Darkzero are going to want to have to bring. And, there was a time where Darkzero didn't bring Dokkaebi. I think famously they brought her once or twice in the span of like a year and a half was the statistic. But that's no longer the case, and they've been doing a great job of using those ops to help out with the roam clear. Forrest is not deterred. He's going to go back to the Tachanka and might have more success here on the mid floor.
He switched guns as well. He was running that, 9x9 or whatever it's called. That's the one gun where it's like, I'm just like, I have no idea what to call this thing. So it's just refer to it as whatever the Spetsnaz gun is. I mean, part of the big change with Tachanka was to make his turret more mobile. So you take it off of its hinges, and now he just carries around an LMG and fires it, no problem whatsoever. Quite impractical, but I mean, we're also talking about a game where you pull giant steel reinforcements out of your behind. To mention the fact that Thatcher has just, like, you know, pocket-sized mini nukes, which, as far as I'm aware, are not a thing. But, you know, realism in games is terribly important, Jesse, so we need to maintain a consistent amount of realism here.
Look at all these floorboards broken open. Not a single player on OXG is on site. All 5 players are playing above the bomb site, and I'm not here to criticize. This is exactly what you have to do on a map like Bunks and Briefing, where the entire bomb site can be denied from up above. There's one little plant spot kind of behind a pillar that is tricky to deny from above, but I'm pretty sure even there you can get some angles. So, especially when you add in the Tachanka, there is no safe place to plant. Darkzero will need to address this top floor, and they've brought out some very scary operators to do so. Lots of smokes, Ying, and a Glaz. It's going to be tough for OXG to exist up top.
I'm reloading.
Citizen playing on traditionally a lurk role on a lot of his teams has been front and center for DZ. Put up a quiet 6 kills, but he doesn't seem to be the player in the cut and thrust that we often talk about, and that is perfect if that's the role they have him on. Spirits was the one leading the charge in, and of course no shields to be had for him, so he's on the Ying. You said that we would see it, how vindicated you are. Again, I love to be vindicated. I know you, Jesse, you love being right.
That's always nice.
Okay, so it's not great. Forrest kills Gomez with his own fire. NJR has a read on Yaga playing behind that deployable shield, and he knows that there's a player in that position. That means there's only 3 on OXG that are unaccounted for. Forrest avoiding being cooked himself as he sees the corpse of Gomez not just feet away. Double flash will go in, and Darkzero will look for an entry point here as the smokes go out as well. NJR in the midst of it, searching for something. Diffuser going down in the hands of Navy's at the halfway point, but nobody's watching Forrest from above. NJR failed at his one job. Because of that, Nath goes down. Yaga is spotted by NJR. That was an earlier target, Jesse. Now it's Grixer's turn to sustain some damage here at the hands of Pambazoo. Forrest gunning down Citizen, still unshaken from this position above. A 2v2 as the diffuser now successfully put down by NJR. Forrest picked off, and it leaves Adam with just a single kill through these 5 rounds as last man standing. Because of this heavy upstairs hold, Adam has one hell of a job in front of him. He needs to go down to the case, figure out where these last 2 players are. Are they nearby? Are they outside? Are they sitting on the diffuser? What drones or auxiliary gadgets are around? All of those considerations lead him to a bit of hesitation, in which he's punished by the mayor. NJR might have cost Nafe his life, but he bails them out of a bad situation, and Darkzero extends their lead as they're up 4-1.
Yeah, another cool push. A lot of teams might have lost their cool when their initial planter went down. You know, when you flood the site with smokes, Warden is banned. You're doing your best just to get the defuse kit down, and it's not even the Solus upstairs that stops it. Might have gotten the ping for the Tachanka. I didn't quite catch it, but regardless, when you lose your planter immediately into that push, it's easy to lose your cool. It's easy to not be able to respond. But Darkzero had no issues with that. We're very quickly able to pick up that defuse kit, get it down to the 2v2. Found Forrest as well, who I really thought was going to put up a great Tachanka clip for us. I just talked about the best Solus clip I'd seen all year. Forrest could have done the same with Tachanka, but just wasn't able to find the kills enough on the top floor. So way she goes sometimes, and this game is starting to spiral out of control. If you're a fan of Oxygen Esports, down 4-1, defense on Lair is a tough spot to be. I think a lot of pros have said that this map at a high level leans towards the attackers, because once you get good at it, the attackers have a lot of options, a lot of different ways to take the map. But even still, this is not where you wanted to be if you're Oxygen. They need this next round.
Feels like we're in a similar place to where we were in the wildcard C9 game, where it was 5-1, and I was like, they really need this next round. You know, they really need their second round, or else it'll be 6-1, and that's kind of bad. Very familiar territory here. I honestly did not expect OXG to be on this bad of a receiving end of DZ's aggression. Fourth map where Lair is inarguably defender favored. For some periods of time, this is a very friendly map for the defenders. So the fact that OXG is sitting with just a single round to show for it, despite 3 shield bans on the board, is really quite striking. There is an opportunity for DZ to run away with this. If they put up a 5-1 first half and then they move as defenders, I think they can probably put us at a 7-1, 7-2. This has been the scoreline that we've seen quite frequently today. Janiro called it out on the desk. Fox and Laxing seem to agree with it as, well, it has not been as competitive a day as we had hoped. We'll wait and see what happens in our 5th matchup, which occurs after this is all said and done. Team Cruelty, who played in Mexico and are still in Mexico, as far as I'm aware, will be playing up against Space Station in our final match of the day. SSG will almost certainly be favorites just based on the way that these regional leagues have played before, but you never really know. Keep in mind, Cloud9 were not the favorites, yet they still beat Wildcard. Teams coming to not early blows, Jesse, but Grixer dies, Nath dies, and both teams now in a 4v4 with just a bit over a minute to go.
Yeah, Nath not in a super safe spot. He died from the vert, but he had a flank that would have killed him about 2 seconds later. Pamba is watching for the flank now and easily shuts it down from Gomez. Was at a tough match so far. The captain of Oxygen Esports, yet to really find a lot of impact. Now it's a man advantage with 60 seconds to play with in this round from Darkzero. While I didn't love the start from Nath, still has been a dominant position. They've got a lot of players up here on the north. Getting past Forest on this smoke is going to be the next job.
There go the Candelas. Forest is prepared and waiting before that Candela can go off. A simple shotgun blast to the chest, and it's game over for Spirits. DZ has their 3 top fraggers still standing, so if there were anybody that you would entrust with this round, it's got to be NJR, Pamba, and Citizen. Now it's Pamba's turn to go back down below. Forest has been dropped. Should be an easy secure. I don't know if the Selma works that way. Will it claim him? No, it does not. Oh, yes, it did. He just crawled out of the way. Adam on a single point of HP. Yaga still at full HP, and it's Adam to get the kill with the super. Shorty, Yaga on the board as well, and it's all up to Citizen with 2 seconds left. All Yaga needs to do is hide, and OXG will survive the round. The first half is in the books. DZ putting together 4, OXG 2.
All right, big from Yaga to step up and get a couple of those late round kills. Obviously, another one of those players that has been struggling maybe a little bit. He's been on this auction team for a very long time now, but not really finding the scoreboard through that first half. I'm glad that they got that second, though. I mean, that's going to be necessary if you want to be able to turn this around on the offense. We'll see the next couple of bans coming through. A smoke ban is a little bit odd. Again, usually on this map, you would see a Zombie, Tubarao, Warden, maybe some wall denial operators. It's going to be smoke and clash. So clearly OXG have some strong ideas about what they want to do. Smoke, a very famous operator for NJR, of course, so that might be part of the reasoning why they want to take it off the board. But this game, I think one of those games that could end up spiraling out of control from Oxygen, but I don't hate it in their position right now either.
I mean, I don't love where OXG is. From all the things that I said earlier, the fact that they will now move on to attack, unless we do see something that is a bit abnormal, which is an attacker-favored layer, which again is entirely possible. I don't know how I feel about OXG's position moving forward. They already called their timeout, so there's nothing they can do to slow this bleeding if it continues. And now they are going to be on statistically what should be the weaker side of this map, up against a team that, as a roster, this is a bit more experience. Obviously, all of those things are factors, but they never really play into it. I mean, we've seen teams that you've really never heard of excel in leagues, in smaller events, and I mean, hey, we just had CAG make it to the grand finals of Reload, which is something that almost no human on this planet would have ever guessed. So unpredictability is entirely possible. What is predictable is that I suspect it'll be exciting no matter what. Spirits will play on the Tachanka. That was an operator that we watched in the hands of Forest. Can the Frenchman on DZ do anything different? Sorry, French-Canadian. I do know that they like that clarification. They like that designation. Distinction, some would say.
It's kind of funny. Forest was running Tachanka because the Goyo got banned. Now Spirits is running Tachanka, presumably because the Smoke got banned. So different answers to different problems, but I guess the same answer here in this situation. Gonna be one of those issues again where it comes to stalling that time. Nobody really on a roam on the side of Darkzero. Usually you'll see one player kind of lurking in the basement. That was Gomez last round on the top floor, but Darkzero opting to keep all players up above. Part of that is, of course, because they've got such a strong site presence with NJR playing on that bandit. He's going to be in a good spot to trick things. There's only an ace in terms of hard breach, and then only pocket EMPs from Grixer. And now there's no hard breach. Uh-oh.
Adam has really not lived up to the kind of praise and billing I was giving him earlier, as I had high expectations for him in this match. I mean, unfortunately, there's a couple standouts on OXG in the wrong direction. Gomez at 1 kill despite his role. Yaga with only 2 kills, but he tends to play among the safest of these roles. Maybe not on attack, but as a defender, Yaga is almost never involved in the early altercations. DZ will now escape as some more of those Molotovs get shot out. Spirits has gone through half of the magazine at this point. With 1 minute left, he'll have plenty to blanket the bomb site or the entrances to it. It's up to OXG to avoid them.
I like that Kiba on the floor, protect a little bit against Yaga, who's still down below on that buck. Spear's getting lots of use out of this, as you said, on the Tachanka. Will be stalling out time. Man disadvantage, but they still have that Monty, which can work a lot of space, work a lot of information. I'm interested to see if they can get another dimension to this push. Monty's rotated, looks like over towards the balcony up top there. So it'll be interesting to see where he actually wants to make his entry point, because it doesn't feel like there's any easy way in, with Spirit spamming one way, Dreadmines another, and Bandit batteries over here.
I mean, that's what happens when you lose your hard breach early. You said it yourself. The job just became infinitely harder. The Monty of Forest will now challenge Pambazoo in this direction. He cuts off a line of sight. Now the Monty will toil all on his own. Grixer drops the hands of NJR. A drop down for Pambazoo, but Forest is the only one standing. He finds a single kill onto Pamba, but he's only got 2 seconds left, Jesse. What is he going to be able to pull off? Not much. He takes down NJR before the timer runs out. And again, clock management is the name of the game. Very, very hard on a map like Lair when you lose your hard breach to get on top of that clock. Once your hard breacher goes and all of those walls remain reinforced, there is almost nothing you can do. You just have to try and work through it. You've got doorways, maybe some soft destruction, as you saw, trying to play below. But I mean, that's sometimes a fool's errand. A really tricky spot for OXG to get themselves out of due to the fact they lost the hard breach early, and DZ benefits from it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really difficult, especially in a map like Lair. It's why we often see the Bandit Kaid ban come out. Not in this game, but it was the most common pair of bans in the first phase at Reload. So you often see teams dedicating a lot of resources trying to enable themselves to open up walls. And here, it wasn't the electricity that was the problem. Of course, it was just losing the ace early on. But I mean, we know how big of a factor that can be. Got a small tech pause here between DZ and Oxygen. Maybe a blessing for OXG to settle the nerves a little bit. As we often say, it's not a time where you can discuss strategies, but it is a time that you can maybe cool off a little bit, get out of your own head if you've been in it. I know a couple of players in Oxygen still have yet to really hit the ground running this stage, so hopefully they can settle themselves down a little bit, because these are kind of the games where you're up against a DZ, a team that have looked somewhat weak over the last 6 months. You want to be finding early wins to set yourself up for later in the season.
If you're a fan of baseball, you'll know that they play 160 plus games a year. And you'll know that for a lot of fans, if you do poorly in the first 20 games, people just brush it off and say, it's a long season. There's 140 more games to go. But if you go, say, 5-15 in those first couple games, those first 20 games, and you get to the very end, you're 10 games away from the season ending, and you're 1 game back of the playoffs, it's not uncommon for you to go back to those first 20 games and say, if we'd just done a little bit better in the early season, we wouldn't be here right now. And it's really true. I have heard teams say openly at the start of the season, whether they be in Europe, whether they be in Brazil, whether they be in North America, here in our game, they've said, well, it's just, the first or second game. We just got to get the jitters out. It's just the early season. With how we have had the NA League go before, there are teams who will miss out on the playoffs. They will miss out on a major by a single game that if they had just maybe won it earlier on, I don't want to say tried a little harder, because I don't think these teams aren't trying, but there are certainly teams who take their time to settle in. they wouldn't be in a position where they could miss the playoffs. They could miss a major. They could, at some points, go through relegation in the older systems. So I know it's very easy to just kind of hand wave away the early games, but it is incredibly important that teams take what they have done in the offseason, which for some of these squads, the ones not in the R6 share program, the ones who were not present at Reload, it's been a long offseason, especially if they didn't make SI. They need to put the pedal to the metal and start off strong, because you lose your first or second game and you kind of say, it's fine, it's early season. When it comes down to game 8 or game 9 and you're one game back of making it into the playoffs or even clinching a major spot or one of the higher seeded spots, you're going to look back at that first or second game and shake your head and say, that's when we lost the season.
Especially for Oxygen. I mean, when they made the 6 Invitational in Boston, it broke a 570-day streak of not attending any LAN events. And that event, they didn't win, they didn't qualify for by winning regular season games. They did it just by winning an open qualifier. So they've had their struggles in the past with winning these regular season games, with being towards the top of the league play, where they've been stuck for the last couple of years, and they would love to start turning that around. They kind of thought that with this rebuild, the roster, it would be the team to do it. And it's still early. It still could be. But yeah, these early games matter. We go to the mid floor for round number 8. So no basement for now. It's going to be Bunk's briefing, where, again, that top floor is oh so critical. They've got 4 players up above as just NJR holds down the site. On the side of Oxygen, they haven't done a whole lot to pressure up above. They've got, obviously, Thermite coming in to open things up from green. But I imagine they're not going to be going for a full top clear at this point. The time is getting a little bit low. The goal is going to be smoke plant with their 4 smokes they have on Gomez and Grixer. Pressure up above so that these players are too distracted, I should say, to get the vertical denial and then play an objective style of game. But again, easier said than done. And this mute jammer has been a real problem.
This is not the first time in the last 4 minutes that we have seen an issue with hard breach on OXG's side of things, but they make it work. They use that pocket EMP to open things up. Thatcher really was relegated to the Shadow Realm after those pocket EMPs were added to the game, and I mean, one of the beautiful things about Dokkaebi is that she brings them amongst all the other little pieces of nuisance that she adds. NJR dies at the hands of Yaga. That's DZ, suffering through a first death. They haven't really been in this position all that frequently. And with 30 seconds left, you're going to need every single player primed and accounted for. Pambazoo from above sees that Sen's wall and will now shoot out those Molotovs to try and stop the defuse plant from going down, but he's completely blind to Yaga's position. Yaga has actually evaded all of the flames, and OXG gets away with the diffuser, planted successfully. Adam is picked off as he tries to get out of the vicinity by Nafe, but now the clock will run against Darkzero as they have to choose where these OXG players are on very limited information. Forest guns down Citizen Spirits, trades it right back, but the timer is unrelenting. Nafe, Spirits, and Pambazoo against Gomez, Grixer, and Yaga. Pambazoo trying to take that bottom floor. So much of this has been played on the middle floor. Kills coming in for DZ, but what about the clock? They are at halfway. Grixer is still situated under the stairs. He gets all of them, and there's only a second left as he finishes off Pambazoo. The push coming back to the site worked so effectively for DZ until they discovered Pablo hiding beneath the stairs. A great round from OXG in the post plant. And again, DZ had very limited information as to where the plant was going. They had even less information when the diffuser went down. And OXG, benefiting from all of that, played it so well.
Grixer just racking up the kills on that bomb site. He's been finding so many good frags, both on the attack and on the defense. But I really want to give credit to Yaga in that round. That was such a cool strat with the Sen's wall. One of the biggest problems on Bunks and Briefing is stopping a Warden from up above from denying your smoke plant. You know, clearing top floor is so difficult. Teams would love to shortcut it and just not clear top and go for a smoke plant down below. But there's always a Warden up top or a Solus. And so that makes it really, really difficult to deal with that. Darkzero solved the Warden Warden problem by straight up just banning it at the start of the game. But OXG, instead of wasting a ban on a Warden, were able to use that Sens wall, go for an unorthodox plant spot. Warden's goggles, of course, since the buff descends, can no longer see through those walls, which meant there was a completely secret plant spot going down from Yaga. He really pulled that off beautifully. The Tachanka wasn't able to find the mark and stop that. Found a little sliver just inside the door where the plant would not get denied. And from there, I mean, it kind of set things in motion for that post plant to go so strongly for OXG. So great strategy from Oxygen. I expect to see more of that as the stage continues. And yeah, another one of those Sens usages that kind of has been popping up more and more since the buff.
If you talk to players about Sen's usage, it's the lack of predictability with his rolling smoke, right? Or their rolling smoke. It's very challenging to know where they're going to go when you throw them out of your pocket. And we have seen teams perfectly line it up on a door frame and then just, nope, it just comes right back to you. And well, there goes the whole idea behind it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're kind of victim to circumstances that can be outside of your control. But yeah, changes to Warden, changes to the destruction of those gadgets. It's really buffed Sens in a positive direction. And frankly, it's an operator that I would love to see them play a more prominent role in the meta. I've said this before about operators like Ying and Warden and stuff like that, and then they end up dominating the meta and everybody hates it. So I'm just a little bit nervous about talking about Sens too much.
I don't know if we got to be that concerned about Sens dominating the meta, but if we do, Parker, I'll know who to blame. I'll know who to blame.
Okay.
This is a cool push. This is the first time we've seen a garage side push. Every other push this game so far has come over towards office, which is the more common side to push. But a garage side push can absolutely work as well. You don't need as much top-down control. You still need a bit. You still need to be able to deny somebody killing your planter from above. But broadly, being able to take that space on garage side is a bit of a bigger challenge. Doing it with a Blackbeard is the idea from Oxygen, and as he rotates up top, they've got more problems to deal with too. Sprinting out of the way is Pamba, but he's not really going to a spot where he's going to find more kills. He's just wasting time by drawing the Blackbeard out. That guy was on the basement not too long ago, and now he's fighting a player who just retreated to top.
Yeah, this middle floor on layer is always so important when you're, or well, the main floor, when you're looking at a basement hold, but whether or not teams are able to flush it out, or whether they look at a map like layer and most teams just say, well, we don't have enough time to deal with droning it, so let's just go for maybe a bit more of a linear push. On a map like Bank, you'll get punished for that, for not taking control of that middle floor. On layer, it's just really big. Sometimes you can benefit from just going straight for the throat, and that's exactly what OXG seems to do, by the way. They greet every single member of Darkzero with a little bullet salute. Nafe and Citizen are the last two left. The British boys, as they have to deal with OXG's overwhelming numbers and a diffuser being planted at the same time. Citizen finding Grixer. What remains of him, at least, is now that middle floor we talked about, not controlling it. It's going to hurt the defenders. A bit of a bottle job by Nafe, as now Citizen will need 3 more. He won't even get one. A lockout from OXG, and they are keeping this one close. DZ were well within their rights to win that round, but OXG come out ahead. We have got quite a competitive match on our hands, Jesse.
That we do, Parker, and again, it's Adam's positioning that really comes out ahead. He's not had the most kills in this game, but I really like where he's been setting himself up, both on the offense and defense. As you mentioned, middle floor, so important to be able to stop that clutch potential from the British duo on Darkzero. One more ban apiece. Could be a Blackbeard to come out from the defensive side. They actually banned the Tachanka in a serious match. I mean, that is absolutely being taken out because Tachanka's been a problem. It's been heavily used ever since that smoke ban. We'll follow it up with a tactical timeout to come through. Of course, the Ram being banned on the other side, so I expected maybe a Blackbeard. The Ram was the operator just piloted by Adam in that previous round. So you see that impact that he's been able to have with that operator. Definitely starting to slip away a little bit from DZ. They will call this tac timeout, and we'll see what the third British member of this team can say to try to boost their spirits.
He's got Kangaroo in his name. He's clearly from Australia.
He doesn't have Kangaroo in his name. It's Kangaroo, okay? There's only one A in that name.
I'm not passing judgment on his ability to spell. Kangaroo is in Australia. That is very simple math. Kangaroo in the name must be Australian. That's it, done.
Feels like more geography than math. maybe biology, knowing where animals are from.
Name plus kangaroo, irrespective of spelling, equals Australia. Very simple.
Okay.
This is an attacker-favored layer, by the way. So what I said was abnormal has now come to pass. Defenders are really suffering from how big this map is at the moment. And I say that because when we watch layer at events, when we watch layer in previous leagues, a lot of the fights seem to be isolated to specific parts of the map. The way that these two teams have approached it seems to be much broader, right? We are not seeing very isolated engagements. We are not seeing the attackers pick apart and isolate defenders, and we're not seeing defenders roam to a point where they can be pinned down so easily. There seems to be quite a bit of reluctance here from the attackers to engage early on. So what do? They drone things out almost as if they're Team Vitality from the days of old, where they drone everything 900 times and then they execute knowing exactly where the defenders are and aren't. And both teams are doing it very effectively. Obviously, there are struggles. No teams are perfect. And because this is the early part of the stage, there are mistakes that are being made. There's been some sloppy gunfights, but by and large, you're looking at two teams that are responding quite well to each other and taking the problems head on and problem solving as the rounds are going on. That's made for a very exciting match.
Top 4 will be tried again by Darkzero in round number 10. No Tachanka to speak of anymore, so this time we're going to see just a more standard classic lineup. I said previously we had the Tachanka replacing the Smoke. Now it's the Goyo replacing the Tachanka, even though earlier the Tachanka replaced the Goyo back when Auction were on the defense. So no matter what you do, there's going to be some smoke, there's going to be some fire. They'll have some answer to stall things out, but maybe not in the exact way that they would have wanted. Some roam clearing going down on this bottom floor. You just talked about Vitality droning, Parker. There is nothing to find down here. It's once again 5 defenders on the top floor from Darkzero, but Gomez can't be too careful. He knows his role is to get below and to start causing some chaos with this skeleton key, and if he gets flanked at any point in time, that's going to make things pretty hard, pretty difficult. So he's got to play it safe and sound, but there are no threats actively fighting him. Instead, the pressure will be up above. First exothermic charge is used interestingly on the ops wall to get into the hallway. Often that gets saved for one of the 2 mask walls.
Forest on a very familiar role, which is shield. Saw OXG banned out only shield operators. This time, no. Darkzero decides the Ying and the Ram are too much of a problem. Fascinated to see what Forest does, because while he plays these semi-unconventional roles and operators, he's got 6 kills to his name. He's second on the team behind Grixer. Oxygen is 1 round away from tying the match. Forest has been a big part of that. DZ, the kills are a bit more spread out. Not quite as high and low as we see on Oxygen. This round, by the way, has flown by, Jesse. We are 40 seconds away from the action being over and a victor being crowned in round number 10. Just as we said, no isolated engagements right now. All spread out, attackers taking their time, defenders repositioning to anticipate where the plan is going to come in, and it's Forest with that diffuser in hand, reduced to smithereens. Yaga, technically the first pick, but Nath eliminating Forest means the diffuser has been surrendered and somebody from OXG will be forced to retrieve it unless they can clear the board with kills. This looks a little bit less likely. Gomez drops, Grixer drops, Adam drops, Yaga drops as well. DZ let Oxygen build up some momentum and gave them hope and then immediately squash it. After a timeout was taken by DZ, they settle things down and they go back to their winning ways. The gap that closed has grown once again, and DZ sits on match point.
I feel like Auction have had so many nice, fun, cool pushes today. They had the Sens push down on Bunk's briefing. They had the garage side push with Blackbeard down in the basement. That push just really didn't feel like it for me. It was so focused on the mask wall. The kill down below was fine. I mean, it didn't go the way of Oxygen, but ultimately they really bet everything on just a Monty smoke plant. 1 Nitro coming out from Nave did 99 damage over to the Monty, and then finished it off with a TCSG. I think they wanted a little bit more value out of the glass that they didn't really get. I'm not sure. To me, it just felt like a little bit of a one-dimensional push that didn't really have the oomph the last couple of strats from OXG have had. So Bit disappointing. The bright side is they don't have to go back to that bomb site until we head to overtime, so they can think about it until then. But game plan needs to be on these next couple of bomb sites. Can they find answers to the holes that DZ are putting up? Can you have some better pushes? Because I don't know, that last one just really didn't do it for me, Parker.
Attackers must locate.
I mean, it was quite a rare fumble from the attackers, but again, it comes down to timing. The problem with a team like Vitality when they existed and they would drone everything and then they would wait till the final 15 seconds and attack, or the problem as well with the 20-second meta when we were in it. And I know that I just said that, and about probably a sixth of the chat, their eyes just glazed over and just they're filled with bloodlust and rage at the moment from hearing it. But the problem with leaving so little time on the clock is really quite obvious. If you stumble, there is not enough time for you to recover. So you have to be thorough in your execute. OXG was not in that round. And that honestly goes to the smart repositioning from Darkzero. With 25 seconds left on the clock, DZ completely changed up where half of their players were to play against the read they had on OXG. They shut down the defuse plant immediately, which is probably the best target you can find. And then you just wait for the rest to trickle on in and punish them, keeping away from them so that they can't beat you on kills. Darkzero might not have to do that this time around as they pick off Gomez, who's having quite a poor match at this point. No logic bombs on the table. Whatever pocket EMPs that were available, or sorry, rather, Forrest now holding on to that. So it looked like the can opener was in pocket for the Dokkaebi, which means even worse. You've lost your secondary and only hard breach on the side of OXG. That's going to be real tough with 90 seconds still left for Oxygen to try to pull off and execute.
Yeah, I mean, good start from Pamba, getting aggressive in that early round. He had a bit of a tough event down in Rio. 0.63 KD is the worst LAN event for Pamba on record. You could argue maybe it wasn't the event that he tried the hardest in, but even still, nice to see a bounce back. The first game of the NAL, 9-6, really important entry, clearing out Gomez. Means that those roamers were able to persist for a very long time, and one of them has continued to persist. With no logic bombs, they might not know Citizen is here, and he could have a devastating impact in the last 60 seconds.
Vintage Citizen hiding in a corner, waiting until the moment to strike. They've got their own Citizen on the side of OXG, which is Grixer. Problem is now the jig is up. Citizen's been droned out over by Medbay, and now he can get out of that position as he'll emerge from medical and now tear ass down the hallway with 40 seconds to go. He just needs to catch one player of OXG off guard. He seems to want to do that. Yaga eliminating spirits. Numbers go back to even with 30 seconds left, Jesse. Now, OXG struggled with the clock last time. Grixer's punished by Citizen, and now the mad scramble for OXG will occur. Adam punishing NJR only after losing Yaga. Forrest will drop, and it's all up to Adam to save the match for his team. He's come online, but maybe a bit too late for OXG. This will be their last gasp at this round, and Pambazoo says enough. DZ wins 2 in a row, and they'll take it without needing overtime. Darkzero emerging, the big victory in their first match.
DZ with their 6th map win in a row against Oxygen dating back to March of 2023. They seem to just dominate this team. Doesn't matter the roster of Oxygen, doesn't matter the roster of Darkzero. DZ always tend to have their number, and that continues here in 2025 on Siege X. Last push, honestly, didn't hate it. They had some interesting pressure over by Garage. Most of the push actually went over towards Lab. The late filter jump in was kind of cool there, playing mind games on where that push was actually going to come from. But at DZ, we're ready for it at all points.
Both teams showing quite a lot of promise, and I don't think they'll be so far apart in the standings when all is said and done. Lair is a bit of a tricky pickle to get yourself into and especially out of. DZ made it work. OXG still got some work to do. Last match of the day is up in just a matter of minutes. Team Cruelty versus Space Station. But first, we'll hear from our winners after this break.
Come on. Machine rotate. Stock. Stock. Push stock. To left, to left. Just at him. Good bees. Thank you. Play, boys. Let's go, Zach. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. That's a very mild celebration. But you know what? Great for them. 7-4, actually, I know when it came to the prediction, you went 7-4, 7-3. And we were talking about this, and you were like, Ginny, can you please ask me what it feels like to be right? So, Lax, what does it feel like to kind of be right?
Cloud9. No, it feels great. No, honestly, like, you know, we're all taking a shot at the dark here on the scoreline. I knew DZ was going to win that, but I mean, I did think also Oxygen was going to put up a fight, but I think a lot of that came on the forefront of obviously their attacking side, which I don't know why some teams just make the attacking side look a lot easier than the defensive side, which because that's always the easier side. So Oxygen just likes to do the exact opposite of things, making the harder side easier and the easier side harder.
Yeah, I mean, we expected Darkzero to come out on top with that win. Obviously, they looked consistent. It did slip up a little bit, but they were able to close it out. But some really good takeaways from OXG to be able to have that resilience, to bring it back, not necessarily give up. The strategy from them, the way that they were playing off of each other on their attacks was very good. It's what we wanted to see because we were worried for OXG. Right, like you said, the easier side is going to be, you know, struggling. But the harder side, once you get the harder side down, the easier side will follow suit. So if you're just able to focus up on those trades, make sure you're securing those round wins, focusing on the execute, and you're able to do the hard part first, then once you get the defense, they just got to iron out the kinks a little bit more time. But I like what we saw from OXG. Not thrilled with it, but I wasn't terrible.
I'd agree.
Loki, it sounded like you said, just win.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you are the better team and you shoot better than the other team,
Makes a lot of sense.
you will win.
It does how it be. But for Darkzero specifically, I think where they won the game, more so outside of just in the game, was actually in the ban phase, where when you were looking at Oxygen, their bans, they were scared of the shields. They just got rid of the shields. When you were looking at Darkzero, it looked like there was a lot more methodical strats that were going into that behind that was going to help push them through their attacking side and on their defense. I mean, on defense, they were getting rid of the Warden and the Clash. I can't remember who the third one was, but then even on attack, they were banning the Ying. When they were on the defense, they were banning the Ying. They were banning the Ram. They were just making those bans go in their favor, and this is what we wanted to see. We want to see how this ban system was going to develop, and I think Kangaroo in specific and Darkzero is getting a far better understanding of how they want to approach the ban phase. And like I said, I think they also won this game, not only the game itself, but in the ban phase alone.
Yeah, and they also had individual players who were doing really well. So Blacklight is going to be going over this time around to Citizen because you know what? He's had a great performance. So it's just going to be another highlight reel this time for the man himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, consistency he was. I mean, every single game, you're never going to see Citizen at the bottom of the leaderboard, but he really showed up for his team today, specifically being able to be that entry in the site, you know, running back the clock a little bit and being the main player to get those kills. You wouldn't expect him to be the one, but he was really feeling it today, and I feel like Lair as a whole, because the way the map works, it's not necessarily one entry point. You have to position yourself around the map. So Citizen was put in these positions to execute, and when he has no worries on his shoulders, he just needs to shoot what's in front of him. I mean, he was one of the best, obviously, from his road from Na'Vi to G2 to coming to play for Sonics. Now, finally, he's developed so much of a player, and that's why he's so consistent. But when he's put in those positions where he has to show up, he always does for DZ, and that's why he's been a perfect slot in for Bolo's position.
It's 9 p.m.
Yeah, he flexes everything, he plays everything, and he still has great aim.
That's like gamer hours. What do you mean it's 9 p.m.? Anyways.
It's 9 p.m.
Okay, thank you so much for letting us know what time it is. But it also is time to have the interview because Naif is ready from the side of DZ. So congratulations on your first Playday win here in the NAL. Reload,
Thank you.
You know, you guys had a performance there when it comes to the takeaways from that event and what it's looked like behind the scenes in terms of learning from those mistakes. What has that been like?
I mean, yeah, Reload was, I think, seen as a success from our point of view. Obviously, it's our first event as a team, and obviously, like the way we looked at it as, no matter what the format was like, I mean, it was good experience from us, like to play officials before, you know, NAL starts and like the qualifiers to Saudi begins. So all around positive.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Naif. My question is more specifically for going up against an opponent like OXG. They have a lot of different characters, a lot of different play styles. They just rebuild their team. When you're going up against a team like this, you don't really have much footage. You only know to a certain extent how players play. How do you prepare for that? Are you going off of old OXG things? Are you just trying to hyperfixate on individual players? Do you just play your own game?
Yeah, for the most part, I think we've just played our own game. But I mean, obviously we scrimmed those guys before we went to Reload. We haven't scrimmed them since coming back. Obviously, like you can pick up small tendencies, which can like correlate like throughout all maps. But no, I mean, as you said, like we weren't going to go back and look at the SI VOD from a completely different team, so we just played our own game.
For sure. Well, again, congratulations on the win. My question to you is obviously with this new ban phase and how it was implemented in Reload versus now, I mean, what's kind of been your biggest takeaway? As I talked about this and you can reiterate it, I think that outside of you guys winning the game today, you guys also won it in that ban phase, and kind of what's the prep around that look like?
I mean, I won't go too deep into it because obviously we have our... There's like stuff I don't want to like go too deep into.
For sure.
But I mean, obviously, like I mean, you can like put it together. Obviously, like they banned 2 shields.
Yep.
We banned Warden. We're gonna abuse smokes and flashes. You know, like I think that's what you got to pick your poison against Zach. So
No, you do.
Like if you want to ban your shields, like I mean, we experienced it from when he was on Beast Coast and like you know the team at SI. So yeah, I can imagine it's not fun against playing against us right now, but. I mean, yeah, I think that's it's just like the small, like it's just mind games playing with people, and like even if like a team, like even if you ban Warden for example, and they ban Glaz Ying, like you could like there's still 5 players you can flash,
Right.
you know what I mean? So like for example, Warden's like an operator you just can't replace,
Yeah. No,
whereas
definitely.
like the others like you can.
You know, actually, I know Lax had a completely different question for you that he was too embarrassed to ask.
Well, I thought it was going to be Citizen, but I could have asked Nate.
He wanted to ask
I can forward the message.
Well,
yeah,
I
you know,
mean,
he wanted to ask about beans on toast
no,
and
well,
whether...
that's not what I was asking.
Yes,
There was a
did.
rumor going around. Kangaroo told you guys, you and Citizen specifically, if you won today, you were not
rumor?
only going to get a morning fry up, that you were also going to get beans on toast. So I was just curious if that, was coming to fruition now.
Well, to everyone's surprise, I'm not a fan of beans. From a UK
Yes.
person, I'm not a fan of beans.
Welcome to America.
But you
You're a fan
literally
of
said you
beans.
like
They wouldn't
beans.
ask
I
if
like
we were
beans
gonna
on a
get beans
tortilla.
toast for tomorrow's breakfast as a celebratory. We say? Yeah, Ben likes a good bean. Me on the other hand, no. Not a
Respect.
big fan. Fry up though, full English without the beans.
Well, at least there's still some English in me. He hasn't fully been consumed by the NA
Yeah.
mentality, so I respect it. But that's, especially the beans on toasting. I have you on that one. I agree.
Well, thank you for
Terrible.
your time, Nate. We're not going to take up too much. Congratulations, and good luck tomorrow for your games as well. Bye.
Thank you. See you later.
See ya. You know, beans on toast. That was a great Siege discussion.
What's a fry up? Morning.
What?
It's just their regular like breakfast. Like think of like a normal like American breakfast. You have eggs and like sausage or bacon. Like theirs is like eggs, bacon, tomatoes, beans.
What makes it so special in the UK?
Literally nothing.
It's-
In fact,
yeah.
probably they don't use seasoning. Either way. Uh-oh, I can't believe I just said that. Element is also something that you guys have to keep your eyes out for because the signups are now open. And we had a little bit of discussion about it earlier today, but in case you are only just tuning in, the importance of Tier 2. I mean, again, you guys are now retired, washed, old pro players, but Tier 2 is still important.
Yeah, Tier 2 is very important. I mean, you can see the guy on the bottom left of the screen. I mean, Bay, he is now on wildcard. They've had the top 4 run at Reload. Obviously, he had his fair share of Element games. All of Envy came through Element. So obviously, it's very important for you to be able to develop your skills in the lower levels. And even if your team doesn't qualify in a Pro League or at the NAL, you still have the opportunity for other pro teams to be able to view you, maybe test you out, get a tryout.
Yeah, I mean, not just that. I mean, to go with what you just said in the end, I think in order to have a strong T1, you have to have a strong T2 in the grassroots, and that's where it really starts. And really to get your name out there, and Element is a great source for that. You get a feel of what competitive feels like, not only for yourself, but also to get that experience against T1. And then to maybe push yourself into the eyes of a T1 roster, because we've seen it many, many times over and over. You get picked up
Just to be on
from said
T1 and get hated on by Lax because he doesn't
Absolutely.
think it matters. You know, that's if you want to get hated on, make sure that you do that. Either way, we still have one more game left today because 2 teams have yet to play. It's going to be SSG, and they're going up against Cruelty. Both of these teams looking to prove that they've got what it takes. So make sure that you stick around for the final game of the NAL of today, and we'll be back shortly.